the Rotary Club of Kings Cross is now in session. Just for everyone's information, we are recording this evening, and the recorded session will be put up on our Gmail Drive or Google Drive rather, for later viewing for people who are not able to attend tonight or wish to see parts or all of what we're recording. We're extremely fortunate this evening to have our district governor, Jeremy Wright, with us. Before we jump into that, I'd like to just open up for a modicum of club business. Two items that come to mind. First of all, for all of you board members, we will be having our board meeting this Thursday, and the agendas will be going out. It's up on the G Drive right now. You can add any items that you want for discussion by simply going into the G Drive and adding any items to it. And secondly, in light of the fact that the Police Officer of the Year for next week has been canceled, we have some suggestions and some ideas for a substitute, but I would welcome any thoughts and any input that any club member might have about and someone who could address the club. If not, we'll just have a regular fellowship meeting to be determined. We'll figure this out in the next day or so. But the call is out there because of the short-term nature of the cancellation, that we're open for some suggestions about people who would like to contribute, or suggest people who might like to contribute to our Rotary cause. Without further ado this evening, I'd like to welcome our District Governor, Jeremy Wright. Jeremy, it's a great pleasure to have you. And as you're aware, your more formal visit is going to be on the 20th of September. So we're hoping tonight to do something a little bit different, to make it informal and personal, and in a way, an opportunity to get to know you as well as you getting to know us. Because as a resource for our club, it's important that the members of the club, and not just the officers, but the entire club, have an understanding and a relationship with you. So I know that I could spend a lot of time talking about and introducing you, but quite frankly, you're a hard guy to track down. We couldn't find very much on you in terms of your bio. So rather than spend a lot of time about things that we know nothing about, what I'd like to do this evening is turn this over to you and let you talk about your Rotary journey and what it means to you, and help us to understand so that we can interact better with you. So without further ado, I'd like to just turn this over to Jeremy. I've heard Jeremy a couple of times. He's a fantastic guy to listen to. And I'm just going to sit back and be all ears and let Jeremy do the talking. So Jeremy, welcome. We're really pleased to have you this evening.
Tom, thank you. Great expectations, I think, I start with, but I'd like to start by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land that I'm on, and I'm sure you'd pay respects to the land that you're on. But I'm on Wongal land, which is Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I know you're on other lands and you would pay your respects similarly. I'd also like to acknowledge Judith in your club as a wonderful past district governor. And Thomas, to answer a question directly, how can your club and myself and the district make a connection? There are at least 3 other people in the room, and probably more, that can help you with that. I saw David Maturo about to arrive.
Yeah, he's there.
Where are you, David? There's Rick Vasella, who is your assistant governor. I think you've got the best assistant governor of the whole district. And there's Chris Benacki, who used to be the best district governor in the district, but in another direction, as another sort of person who knows the district really well, and how your club can benefit from my role as district governor is also dependent on how well Rick serves you and how well Chris Benacki serves you. Chris Benacki, we've taken from assistant governor and put him in charge of innovation and change for the district. And I think that's really important for Rotary for a number of reasons. And I might get back to that story because innovation and change is the only way we're going to survive. But Thomas, I'll take your lead. I'll say a few things that I think are relevant for you to know about who I am and my connection and journey with Rotary. But I would open it up for not even questions, a discussion later about where Rotary is going and how Thomas, you and your colleagues around the room, might make suggestions about where else we should go and how else we should make Rotary strong on an ongoing basis. So if that sounds like a bit of a pathway for tonight, I'd be delighted to continue.
Yeah, that's perfect. And this is meant to be dialogue and feedback, because how do we iterate wisely unless we get good feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the interesting thing about my time with Rotary, and a couple of you know that I've only been in Rotary a short time, only 12 years. And I think there are a number of you who have been in Rotary an awful long time, and it's been fantastic, the service you've provided. But it sort of feels like I was doing Rotary work for a long time before that. And two of my major projects in my career have involved Rotary along the way. One was with sudden infant death and the SIDS research that the Australian Rotary Health got involved with. And I was involved, and I'll talk about that a little bit very heavily in Red Nose Day. The other one was in MS research. And again, Australian Rotary Health has had some terrific scholars in MS research. And again, I was involved with that for 10 years. And I only really joined Rotary about halfway through my experience with MS, but I was dealing with the Australian Rotary Health on MS for some time. So look, I'll go back to tell you a couple of stories. My community work, I was involved in the performing arts for a while, but then I was in business and started community work really with Red Nose Day. And my wife and I, unfortunately, we lost our first child back in 1988 to cot death. And we joined a number of other couples in realizing that there was very, very little known about cot death. And certainly we felt that if we could honor our lost child's existence, it would be good if we could somehow make changes. So I happened to run into a magnificent woman in, oddly enough, London a year later, who initiated Red Nose Day in Victoria. And in talking to her, I mentioned to her my background in marketing and promotions, and I was in business, and she said, look, we need someone to start Red Nose Day in New South Wales. So cut a long story short, my wife and I, plus about 3 other couples, basically generated Red Nose Day for 3 or 4 years, from 89 to 92, 93. And we ended up with an awful lot of money. And we thought, well, what we want to do is prevent this. And by the way, SIDS at the time, the Sudden Infant Death Association, was only a small organisation who was surviving on Lamington drives and a little bit of government support. And Red Nose Day gave them an awful lot of money. So I ended up being the president of the association, and we decided on a prevention campaign, which we undertook with a fantastic professor from Tasmania, Professor Terry Dwyer. And we decided to put him in front of a television camera, a television ad. And we developed this the prevention campaign. And you might remember that sudden infant death prevention involves putting babies on their side and back, not their front. There's a couple of other things: not to wrap them too tightly, not for the mothers not to smoke, and also not to overheat the babies. But the major point was practices with the baby, putting babies on their back or their side. So we decided to put a television campaign together, and we were about to go to air with this TV campaign 2 weeks away from the campaign, and we got great help from television stations and advertising agency who helped us. The guy who helped us was the same guy who put together the ads for P&O, Take Me Away P&O. And also this goes with that at Suzanne. That particular guy called John Bevan, brilliant genius at advertising. Anyway, we had this fabulous TV campaign ready, and we took it to the health department just to check with the health department that they would support us. And interestingly, we had this meeting 2 weeks before, and the health department said, "No, you can't go through with this." And we said, "Why not?" And they said, "Well, you'll frighten the mothers of the babies to be." And we said, "That's exactly what we want to do. We want to frighten them to change their practice from putting their baby on their face when they put them to sleep to side or back." Anyway, the health department said, "Well, we're not going to support this campaign." And there was 3 or 4 of us, and we were naive. We went downstairs in North Sydney where they used to be based. And we said, "Are we going to go ahead with this despite them not being with us?" And we looked at each other and we thought, well, they're supporting us for about $60,000 a year, and we were making about $1 million a year with Red Nose Day. And we said, "Nah, we'll go ahead. Damn. We believe in this research." And it was the same research that Rotary was actually supporting. That was the interesting connection. Anyway, the night before we went to air with a campaign that was probably about $300,000 or $400,000 worth at the time, we were getting a few discounts. The health department rang me, deputy director of the health department, and said, "Jeremy, we've decided to support you now." And I was shocked. And I thought, well, what changed? "Oh, look, we think you're on a good thing." It was sort of very relaxed discussion. And and I said to him, "This is fantastic. This is such good news. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased." And then we went forward with the campaign. Campaign lasted about 3 or 4 weeks. We did it the year after. I'm really happy to say that cot death came down by about 80% over the next 3 years. And we were the first in Australia to go out with the campaign, but we were convinced about it. Back to the health department. What we presented to the health department was a possible solution for a disease that they didn't know much about. And normally when you change practices in maternity wards or all sorts of different health establishments around the state, hospitals around the state, there'd be lots of research, there'd be lots of meetings, lots of discussions, there'd be appraisals of how you would go about changing practices, and it would take 6 months to a year to change practices. What we did was force the health department to change practices in 2 weeks and to have all the maternity wards in all the hospitals around New South Wales to actually advocate for the practices that we had researched, we knew that had been researched, and we were rushing through the prevention. We had no idea that we were having that influence, and we changed practices in such a short time. We had no idea that what we were doing, only that we believed in it and it was right. So I'd love to sort of claim that this was all a strategic plan, and we farmed it out, and we knew exactly who the influencers were, and we were going to put in prevention campaigns sort of that was widespread. The main influence on mothers and practices was basically through the health department, and our campaign sort of naively for us supported, essentially encouraged them to either get on board or be possibly on the wrong side of the ledger in terms of what people should do. So it was a real lesson to me very early on in terms of what you can achieve if you're passionate about it, don't quite know what you're doing, but push forward when you're on the right track in some respects. So I thank Rotary for supporting the research that Terry Dwyer and the Tasmanian people and some Victorian people did. We took that research, we put it in front of the public, and it worked. And we learnt a lesson in life that, sometimes you just got to go with your instincts, and you don't know what you'll achieve. Anyway, that was an eye-opener for myself and my wife and other people. And I then, it was funny, we got recruited after that to help other campaigns, Genes for Genes campaign, Starlight campaign. And I was invited on the Starlight Child Flight board with a gentleman that you may well know by the name of Glenn Rann. And good old Glenn Rann and Fern Rann basically took us to a few Rotary events, and after a while they introduced us to Sydney Cove, and in the meantime I got on board the MS Research Australia as the chief executive of that foundation, and I'd started a big campaign to put together critical mass of scientists around Australia who were studying MS, and to develop a strategy involving fundraising and strategic planning in the science of trying to solve MS. And that was at a time when there was fantastic research happening around the world, and we were able to join in that research. And I'm really happy to say that the research in Australia from about 2004 to about 2015 went gangbusters, because we actually were able, with some money that we raised, to join in a research activity that included a number of Rotary scholars in Australia, but academics around the world, and pharmaceutical companies around the world. When I went into MS research first up in 2004, there was one treatment that was okay at managing the disease. When I left MS Research Australia in 2013, 2014, there were 11 different treatments that was starting to have a real effect at reversing MS, which I'm happy to say has continued. So that was another lesson in terms of the power of medical research. And by the way, the power of vaccinations right now, which we know only too well. But it was another experience where if the right forces are joined together, and the word I'll use is collaboration. If you can get people to collaborate who are clever, it's amazing the outcomes that can be achieved. And we had a whole stack of scientists around Australia who weren't working together come together in a number of different ways. And by the middle of last decade, 2015, there was a terrific momentum in MS research that was, as I say, aided by Rotary support. There's a couple of stories which have inspired me. Since I joined Rotary, and I joined it in 2009. I've had fantastic opportunities with Sydney Cove Rotary. They introduced me to the whole area of not quite peace scholars, ambassadorial scholars, and we got one particular ambassadorial scholar through a couple of amazing degrees, and he's now the British Medical Journal editor of primary health in the world, and he's still a member of our club. That was a really something I've been really proud of being able to do. We got global grants through. I also was introduced through Sydney Cove to an Aboriginal group called Tribal Warrior, and they do fantastic work in Redfern, and they work really closely. They're an Aboriginal group that work really closely with the local police force in Redfern, and I was introduced to a number of people and worked with them for about 5 or 6 years, up until very recently. I'm still in touch, but that was an amazing experience that's having real results in changing the attitude of, I'll start with Aboriginal young boys in Redfern, from the attitude that it was a rites of passage to go to jail, to an attitude that jail's actually a pretty second-rate alternative now. And a particular guy there, Shane Phillips, is an amazing Aboriginal leader who has, with the cooperation of the local police force, given confidence and respect to young Aboriginal boys and now young Aboriginal girls in Redfern in a way that's dramatically reduced the crime rate in Redfern. And you might not have heard about the crime in Redfern in the last 10 years after all the troubles that were happening on the block about 12, 15 years ago, because of this one guy, Shane Phillips. So that was an amazing experience. And then my other, and I'll finish with this story, Thomas, but my other experience in Rotary has been with the international conferences, oddly enough, that many of you might have attended, the one in Sydney in 2013. I then started going to a number of other international conferences. Rotary had it in Sao Paulo, and then in Korea, and then Atlanta, and then Toronto. And not because I was a conference junkie, more that all my children, and I now have 4 children, happily, they all up and left us and went overseas, and they're all living overseas in different spots. So it was a way of visiting my children and dropping into Rotary conferences on the way. But it was a real eye-opener going to international conferences, and I'm sure Judith and others who've been to Rotary conferences when they were still running pre-COVID, you get to hear from amazing people. And you know, I've been in an audience with Bill Gates. I've been in an audience with who's the Canadian Prime Minister, Trudeau, with Helen Clark, with the guy from he was the president. I think he was the president of Costa Rica, who decided, and he gave a fantastic presentation in Sao Paulo. I never forget. He said, "We decided to get rid of our military and spend all our military budget on education and health." And apparently he did this, and he's since been into the United Nations and done amazing things. These amazing people that you see, and that got me into the the area of the environment, which I'm really pleased that Rotary is now involved with. Because in 2015, I was in Sao Paulo, where the Environment Sustainability Rotary Action Group was formed. And that led to 2020 and Ian Risley through 2017-18, proposing that we take on this new 7th area of focus. And I discovered that, in fact, Rotary's been advocating looking after the environment since 1990. There's an international president called Paulo Costa. And Paulo Costa gave Rotary a challenge to protect the planet. And I'm so pleased he did, because that started a movement that was a little bit quiet for a while, but came up in 2015 and has now sort of peaked. And now we've got this 7th area of focus, which is the environment. And, you know, the earth is the ultimate life support system for us all. And I'm really happy that I'm district governor now in a time when the environment is important, and we're starting to do a lot more in the environment, as well as other areas, all the other areas that we're so good at. So, look, there's a bit of my story, Thomas. I mean, I've got goals and an overall aim. I came into this position because I thought I had some experiences that could help the district be relevant, be contemporary, be vibrant, have energy, and join with clubs like yours. And it's such a strong club. I've known a bit about your club, and I knew, and I liaised with your president back in 2013-14 when I was president, and we were talking about projects together. I don't think you've done too much with Sydney Cove since that time, but I'd love to think that through Rick Vasilla, there might be more cooperation with the other clubs in the close Sydney region. But you're a great club. You've got lots of energy and lots of resources, and I look forward to working with you through the next year. I think I'll end there, Thomas. A bit of background. I hope I've satisfied your request. Thank you very much for getting to know a little bit more about me and my link with Rotary. And thank you. I'd love to have a discussion now.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. That was really, there's a lot to unpack in what you said. And before I open it up to the club to talk and dialogue about this, I just want to hit on two things that I heard you say that I think is really important. And if you think about it, where we are today in a COVID environment, we are at a critical crossroads in a time that it's a problem we don't know much about either. And it's going to change the way that we live, and it's going to change the way that we view how we interact with other people. And I think that's really a critical thing. The other thing that I really like what you talked about is the critical mass of science, because I believe that one of the things that we can do much better as a Rotary club, I'm talking about our club, is to build alliances with other like-minded clubs, to build a critical mass to attack some of these problems that, quite frankly, are best handled in a larger context than just the individual club addressing it. And I think that's one of the things where our ADGs and you can be of a great deal of assistance, is bringing these clubs together to achieve critical mass for those problems and those challenges which are best handled in a bigger context than just we can do as an individual club. Just an observation. What I'd like to do now is open the floor up for conversation and questions to Jeremy. And I'm going to ask our host, Pete, if he will handle the miking and the conversation flow as the host. So let me open the floor up for questions and conversations to our district governor, Jeremy Wright.
If you have any questions, just pop your hand up. Mark, it's all yours.
Very much, Pete. Thanks, Jeremy. Nice to see you again. Wonderful intro. I was just wondering, from a few years back, 2 or 3 years back, when you were in the start of your preparation for district governor, there was talk about the disconnect between Rotary, its ageing population, and the need to excite our younger generations and try and, increase our membership, etc. There was talk at the time that obviously every club had to do its bit and do their best to facilitate younger membership. There was also what I considered to be a bit of a consensus on the need for quite a collective approach to it, at least from perhaps a district, if not, greater level, to combine energies and strategies towards that end. I was just wondering, 3 or 4 years on, whether we've advanced too much in that regard, and whether there's any known statistics about how we're going with engaging with our younger population.
Yeah, look, there's some good news and bad news. I mean, I think the bad news is that we're slow. The good news is that there are some good developments and good plans. And as far as membership across the board, I'd refer you to the district secretary's newsletter that came out last week, and a YouTube by a guy called Andy Capaxi. And Andy was a district governor last year, and he increased up at the Gold Coast, and he increased the membership by about 10 or 12%, about 140 new members net. Always there are people leaving and there are people arriving, but it's a great YouTube for lots of great ideas about how to address this, how to address the younger members. And Mark, you made a point about saying that. I'm pleased to say we've got a bit of a plan. I'm trying to roll it out quicker than it is rolling out at the moment, but I'll push it along. We did a study through UTS. We did a marketing group at UTS did a study for us last year. I'm not sure if you've had that presented to you.
Yes,
Chris, Rick, yeah. And that told us about the value of volunteering. Now, it's pretty difficult in COVID times right now. But there's some interesting things happening, and we, Sydney Cove, have now, through volunteering and through connections and through, oddly enough, we're doing an environmental webinar that's attracting young people. We've also we've got a small cohort of younger people now who are starting to benefit considerably, oddly enough, by the mentoring that they have collectively got from all us old fogies. And the mentoring has given them some jobs. The mentoring has done other things, including, by the way, a couple of the young people who couldn't afford it were sponsored by several of our members. But we've got this small cohort that's growing now, and we believe that if we can keep these young people occupied, we'll get them to bring in other friends, and this is in the absence, by the way, of a Rotary club in central Sydney now, because unfortunately that club has been disbanded, which is very sad. But we weren't getting a lot of connections from the Rotary club across to members of different clubs, although Darling Harbour did get quite a few of or did get a small portion of Rotary actors across to their club. And they've got some younger members. a general plan as to how you get younger members. One is to get them engaged in volunteering work, and right now is a little bit difficult in that time. Another is certainly to get active and much more active in social media. And we've installed a couple of the younger members at Sydney Cove as social media champions. We're talking right now about going back to our Ryler graduates, going back to our NYSF graduates. Sorry, for those who haven't been in Rotary, Ryler is the young leadership program that we have every year, and we've got graduates for years past. And the National Youth Science Forum is where we also send young people. And those two groups are very ripe for coming back to our clubs generally, and talking about their experiences now that they're 5 years on, or 10 years on, or 15 years on. So we're embarking on trying to bring them back to the club, just to talk to us first up, but to, if we can, in COVID times, because we're doing Zoom calls, out of COVID times, we'll try and get them back involved and volunteering. They're the best answers so far, and I'm happy to hear from others who've got good ideas. But we have to get the new blood into Rotary for our survival. So it's a matter of essential activity to encourage younger people generally.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Pete, may I speak?
Yes, all yours, Ken. Your video's off as well if you want to pop that on.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you for the stories you've told. You're a great storyteller, and I think that's very impressive to us. My question is related to membership as well, following on from Mark. I think we have had the lady from UTS with us, which Pete actually organised, and that was a fantastic night. And we went through the research and found that very good. My question is, has the district been able to bring up the database on the Rylerians and also the summer science delegates? Is that something that can be brought up? And then, because at club level, we have not done a good job there of keeping in touch with those people. I'm wondering if at district level, if the records are there where we could actually follow that up properly.
Ken, you must have been listening to my telephone call about an hour and a half ago. I was speaking with Margaret Noonan, who is head of Next Generations in the district, about precisely what you've just asked. And she's come up with a couple of very positive next steps. Firstly, I discovered that she has a monster of records of Ryler and Ripend and NYSF, and they were sort of dumped in her hands after changes in the district. So while Sydney Cove have had, for instance, my club have had good and bad representation in Next Generations, and in the changes we've lost some of the data, so we suffer from the same fate as what you described, Ken. Margaret Noonan is proposing a strategy whereby we go out as a club, and we can do this as clubs around the district via social media to the Ryler graduates, to the NYSF graduates. She also has their direct contact details, but certainly going after them via social media is another way of doing it, and we will do this. And I'd be delighted to keep you posted, probably through Rick, maybe through Chris, about how we can develop this further.
Good on. Thank you.
Totally agree with what you're saying.
Oh, good.
Yes, Warwick. Stage is yours, Warwick. Jump on, unmute yourself, Warwick.
Okay, how's that?
Gotcha.
Oh, good.
So Jeremy, I was the guy who was chasing you, trying to get you to come to our changeover, just so you know who I am. Anyway, we let you off the hook that time, but because of COVID, nobody really had a function that night. So I'm just following on from Ken, talking about Caitlin, who came and spoke to us, your graduate. Did you actually sponsor her as the club to go to UTS and do an MBA?
No. The arrangements were that we had a group from the UTS do the project for us, and we were invited. We were invited to give an amount of $5,000 to UTS for the work that they did, and that money went to pay, oddly enough, for their coach, and their coach happens to be a PhD who also coincidentally happens to be a Rotary member of one of the northern suburbs, the district north of us, 9685. We found that out later. And by the way, we've got good connections with her. But the system at UTS was that their marketing groups did studies for businesses and organisations like us, and asked for a small fee. By the way, I think the study, was worth way more than what we paid, to keep their PhDs, if you like, supported in their study. So we actually supported someone else doing a PhD by way of paying Caitlin separately. Caitlin, before, and she's just recently got a job, so we might charge a fee soon, but in the first 6 months that she was with Sydney Cove, one of our senior members was sponsoring her club fees.
Okay, is that all that data? Is that all available to have a look at, or is it
Totally available for anybody in the club? It's quite a big report, Warwick. I'm very happy to send you a summary or the whole lot. The whole lot I'd probably send you on a disc because it's like gigabytes. But the data is available. We are wanting to use that data, and we're looking. Kathy Mason has started a project called Adopt a Project, which is very similar to essentially what they propose, which you'll recall is a volunteer hub. And we're looking to have that Adopt a Project on our district website for us to exploit, where people are looking to volunteer, and Rotary would have the best range of projects to volunteer to, at least the best options to look at. And we hope to develop the concept and then link back to the clubs so that your project might be listed on that website, and therefore people might contact you and get involved volunteering, hopefully in due course. And we've certainly been able to prove that elsewhere in the district, becoming a member. So absolutely available, Warwick, not a problem.
okay? Could we have the summary, please?
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah, Caitlin Tanaka, she was we're very impressed with that whole thing.
yeah, she's very, so through Thomas, maybe Warwick, I know you've got my email. Send me an email. In fact, Warwick, I've got yours therefore. So
No, I've got you. Don't worry.
yep, and I'll send you the summary.
Right, all good.
So quick question, just following on that from that, Jeremy, about the volunteer hub. Is that something that's going to be done at a district level, or do you see kind of clubs each doing their own little hub?
Pete, no, at a district level, first up at least, as much as we can do, but with each project having a Google destination to it. So that Google destination being the individual clubs that are managing the project.
Sure.
So yeah, at a district level, yes, but we would probably ask the clubs to promote it. And we would probably ask the clubs to actively promote it through social media a lot too.
Sure.
But at a district level, that then translates that back down to the clubs in due course, Peter.
Yep. It was a terribly loaded question because I know Tom, Warwick, the rest of the board, we're all working on how that might look for our club. So maybe there's a conversation we could take offline to say, yeah, what can we do to boil that up to where you guys, and then align to that, and vice versa as well.
Well, great. I mean, as an idea, there's no reason you can't add that as an idea to your own website, and
Yeah,
we
great.
wouldn't
Okay.
try and compete with that. But we might have a district. I'm aiming to finalise a district website within the next few months. It's Kathy Mason, communications person, is doing it, and we'll be in touch with you about that.
Great initiative. And just a step further to that, the volunteer hub, is your thoughts on, and apology if it sounds like a dumb question, is that Rotary centric, or let's say, you know, we've got Wayside Chapel, they're coming on next week. Would we also want to be that, you know, that center where people come to us and say, hey, you know, I've got this really great program, could we get some volunteers? So suddenly we're extending our reach, and we're being seen as the people that can really kind of gather up some momentum around us. Or do you see this purely as our initiatives?
I think how it might pan out might be a bit of both.
Okay.
And we would be delighted if Wayside Chapel was included as one of the options, and we'd hope to have a good couple of dozen options on, and it's called at the moment Adopt a Project.
Adopt a Project. Yep.
If like the same person, Kathy Mason, started Adopt a Town, you might recall that project where clubs adopted a town. So she's coined the phrase Adopt a Project, which makes sense. And we would hope that that's district centric, but I wouldn't discourage any plans you have to make it club centric as well.
Yeah, that's always been sort of our thought, Jeremy, is that by creating a volunteer hub, we do two things. First of all, we give access to all members according to what their desires are and what their interests are. But I think even more importantly, we don't keep people in those silos. That's what really causes me the concern, is that they get siloed and all of a sudden they get cut off from what they're interested in and what they like to do.
I agree.
So, yeah, so we're experimenting with that, and you know, stay tuned. We'll let you know how it works out. But we have adopted that as a kind of an experiment to see how we can get involvement at the club level.
Well, I'd love to keep in touch to see how it's going from your point of view, so that we can learn lessons to tell other clubs through Rick, through Chris, through David, etc. Through you directly, Thomas. Yeah.
Well, along that lines, we're doing a lot of experimentation inside our club at this critical time, where we've created a sort of a different kind of organization, in the sense that, and I can send you our organizational chart, but like you, we've had to create special positions for people who have unique skills, communications, membership, social media. Those are not things that come easily, and those are specific core skills now that every Rotary Club has to have. So we have adopted an organizational chart, which are outside the 5 avenues of service, but are really crucial now to the survival and the growth of our club. So we're working along that at the same time. So there's a lot going on right now, and it's an interesting time to be alive and to be involved in Rotary, because I firmly believe that what we do the next 2 years and how well we do it will dictate at least the next 5 to 10 years in the long run. That's my personal belief. It's a crucial time.
Thomas, I agree completely. And I think, you know, we're going from the Rotary we knew to digital Rotary, to virtual Rotary, and we're going that direction in a hurry. And I think there's just a lot of opportunities, as you say, directly as you say. It's an exciting time, and I don't think it's sort of a time that you know, I feel that we should go backwards. I think it actually is a time that in some respects we can go forwards. Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments out there? No?
I'll have a comment.
Judith. Wonderful, Judith.
Am I right?
Yes, all yours, Judith.
I want to thank you first, Jeremy, for your very inspirational introduction to yourself. That was very inspirational. And it's so good to know your background and to be able to understand where you're coming from with these various initiatives. With your marketing background, would you apply similar principles to the marketing of new members?
Oh, look, I hope so. And it's an area where I have less experience now because social media is so important. I'm sort of relying on a number of people in my club who are fantastic at Instagram and Twitter, and they're teaching me every day about how to use it better. I'm used to Facebook and LinkedIn, but Instagram and Twitter I've got to become an expert at in a hurry. I think I would hope that the basics of marketing hang true for the different media that we're now involved with. But Judith, absolutely, we've got to be good marketing people.
Yes,
we've got to be good marketing people for good and for the good of Rotary. And social media is one way of doing it. With MS Research Australia, I immediately addressed a whole new way, because Red Nose Day, we used to be on the streets collecting money at railway stations and with selling, red noses on cars out of petrol stations. During my time at MS Research, we suddenly changed to this, online fundraising where you'd go for a ride for 100 kilometres and you'd ask all your mates to support you on a web page, and that changed fundraising dramatically. It's changed since then, so I think we've just got to go with the times and use all our marketing and sales skills. And I think there's probably lots in your club. The people I know have terrific skills that can help you market your club to new members. I hope that those skills and experience get applied. I'm certainly doing the best for the district.
Yes, and to reach out to younger people is very important. I know when we added it to Rotary Inspirational Women's Awards, and we then brought in a category for young people, that not only brought those young people to the surface, but it got a lot of young people to know about Rotary and what we did. And I think it's through initiatives like that that we can reach out to young people, find out a lot. I've been amazed at the young people that have been nominated for our awards with the Inspirational Women. It's just fabulous. And they are very enthusiastic about coming to Rotary and being involved. So I think we can move on in that direction too.
Totally agree.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's been amazing about the guest speakers we've had, Jeremy, is that there is a great deal of interest and enthusiasm in community service. And if we can tap into the deep desires of people of all ages, not just the young, but the skilled, those who have an interest in community service, then I think that's what we really need to focus in on. And you might be interested to know that Judith is the head of mentoring for our club. And let me tell you, she's mentoring me, and she's terrific. No, seriously, she's just terrific. But you're right. It is a skill that we as Rotarians have to focus in on and become better at, not just for our younger people, but for each other. We can share our experiences. Absolutely right. Any further comments out there? Gee, this has been a great hour, Jeremy. I really am very deeply appreciative.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mark, did you have another question?
I was just interested to hear from Jeremy when you say that with the MS group that you're with, and that you'd gone from the old promoting standing in bus train stations and handing out big noses in car garage service stations, etc., to totally or predominantly digital approach as the digital age has come upon us. I just wondered whether there, and I'm expressing my own ignorance by asking the question, but if there is sort of hard data to suggest that the old way of service stations and train stations has been overtaken by this digital form. Are there numbers to support that, or is it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We introduced at MS Research Australia, we introduced a thing called Kiss Goodbye to MS. And you can look it up, Google, it's still happening. And it went worldwide, it went viral. And basically it involves digitally encouraging people all over Australia to undertake their own activity and to become champions themselves, and to gather around them their friends to support their cause. And clearly it appealed to people who had some connections with MS, but Mark, it's certainly revolutionized, and the numbers are huge in terms of the fundraising that happens through this digital medium. Give Now and all sorts of, there are about 100, I'll say 100. There's about 5 or 10 main websites, and then there's a whole stack of proprietary websites that all the charities use now to raise money, and they're all sort of all the cause-related ones I know, and it's mirrored in the crowdfunding that is now part of commercial life. So the digital world has moved absolutely in fundraising, and the amounts of money through digital means would be, I would say, 95%, in terms of compared to the old ways. There's also a traditional old way of appealing and using relationships on a one-to-one basis that raises money from individual donors. That still exists, but it's using digital and virtual means to make the connections now. That is the change. But yeah, fundraising has been revolutionized, and the amounts are huge now in the new ways. And there's still few people, man the railway stations, but that's probably for just to, I guess, provide a little bit more promotion and publicity, more than really the big money comes through the websites.
Wow.
And social media.
Okay, thanks.
We are coming up at the top of the hour. Jeremy, thank you so much. Kenneth, would you like to thank Jeremy on behalf of the club?
Thank you, Thomas. Jeremy, we thank you for your time. We respect as district governor, and with all the other things I see on your LinkedIn that you're still involved in, you are a very busy man, and we value your time tonight. We value your passion, We see great authenticity in your commitment to what you do, and that's coming through very strongly. I recall meeting you the first time out at Bankstown at the Rotary seminar there, how so graciously you came round talking to the tables, and I had to show my ignorance of the day. I didn't know who you were. So I was embarrassed to ask someone who was that guy. So it's wonderful to get you to know you in this way, and you really sparked our enthusiasm and rekindled our desire to be good Rotarians, and you're doing that through the district. So it's a very timely appointment, and we thank you for that. So we're very encouraged through Thomas and our leadership, and through having Chris and David and Rick, you know, in the district team. So we're very blessed by that. So we just say thank you for your communication tonight of the storytelling. It's been very authentic, and we just commend you and wish you well in your year of in charge of Rotary in our district. May God bless you.
Yeah.
Ken, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.